let's get on to illicit drugs. We've gone from the grog to the drugs, which is quite interesting because I checked out with the Victoria Police today. Do you know that the drink driving last year, 5,164 people were pulled up in Victoria for drink driving, and 4,634, so nearly even Stevens, were up on drugs, not including cocaine. It's a big problem in our society, drugs and alcohol. One's illegal and one's legal, and it's causing mayhem.
We know that the AFL have been reviewing the illicit drugs policy since 2019, put on hold over COVID. This is what it is at the moment. It's a two-strike policy, essentially. You get a suspended $5,000 fine the first time. You're outed after 2 positive tests, 4-match ban and that fine. Third positive test, you're out for 12 months and a $10,000 fine. Paul Marsh has defended this very strongly today. I'm sorry, I thought we were going to see Paul Marsh. He is insisting the confidentiality is critical. Players are not going to budge on the drug policy. It doesn't need to go past the club doctor. Now, clubs are saying they want it to go past the club doctor. Ed, it won't happen. The AFL is adamant that not much of significance will change about the drugs policy.
What's going to happen tomorrow to him? Is he going to get rubbed out?
He'll get 2 weeks tomorrow, Bailey Smith, and I think the Bulldogs will be pretty happy with that.
So can I put this to you then, Caro, that he gets 2 weeks because someone took a photo of him, as opposed to, let's say, up to a quarter of the AFL population who at some stage have gone to the doctors and said, I've had a bad night, or whatever the case may be. Could be up as high as that on some of the figures I've heard over the journey. What happens if somebody comes up with a photo in grand final week that happened a year ago of a player? Why is he getting done? I know it's conduct unbecoming and all that sort of stuff.
Bringing the game into disrepute.
But that's he's not getting done for taking drugs. He's getting done for having some slime bag leak a photo of it.
So on your point, Ed, you could hold on to a photo for a while, couldn't you? And you could bring it out on the eve of the finals.
And this is the big issue about illicit drugs, is the opportunity for nefarious people to blackmail players. It's always been the big issue. Going right back to the 2010s, when Collingwood came out and talked about volcanic situation, the drug rules were being absolutely laughed at by the players. The big issue, and the Australian Crime Commission were looking at this, was how are players going to get blackmailed into match fixing because of their situation with illicit drugs. That's always been the big issue. That's still, to me, I still think, Karen, we need to now, not as far as where Jeff was concerned, but there has to be a bit of stick in this. I think players need to be able to go out of a night time and say to everyone who says, hey, all you have to do is go to the doctor tomorrow and say you had a bad night, or somebody slipped you a Mickey Finn or whatever, or, I was feeling bad because I missed a goal or whatever. There has to be some sort of recompense to say, if you get done and we test you at the club, that you have to face something. Now, that might be, it doesn't mean 2 years, it doesn't even have to be a week, but there has to be some reckoning for breaking the law.
Well, what do you do with the photo still?
I just think this is now wide open. I mean,
But what do you do with that adjustment?
The Hawthorn captain was caught drink driving on the eve of the finals. He was not suspended at all. And I would argue that drink driving can be just as bad or worse than because he could have killed someone or hurt someone. And I don't want to get stuck in the
lost his licence and did all that, OK?
He was playing in the finals a week later. Let's have a listen to Luke Beveridge, because I thought this was really interesting.
Our playing group are in a really good space, and we do comparatively, we get some statistics on how you sit in relation to the rest of the competition on these things. We're really healthy. Obviously, Baz is an example of one of our players who has dropped the ball, but I haven't got any great concerns about us as a club. It's more just it's the competition, and it is really the bigger picture, health system versus judicial system.
Luke Hodge wanted to scrap the drug, Luke Beveridge wanted to scrap it altogether. I'm really interested, given that clubs are only given a very vague number about where they stand in relation to other clubs, that Luke Beveridge would say that. And we know that the Bulldogs have had other players out this year with issues. I'm not saying at all for one moment they're drug related, but I feel uncomfortable about clubs getting hold of these numbers.
I was just going to ask you, Ed, as a president, Ross, you as a coach, how often were you informed on where your players sat against the rest of the competition?
Well, you got at the start of the season, you'd get a bit of an understanding as to where you were.
Well, the Herald Sun famously went with a number about Collingwood
which was wrong.
years ago.
Yeah, but that was wrong. Okay, so this is the thing. They come out and say that. Suddenly you've got all your sponsors all over you, and they can't do anything about it. And again, we're going into tough times. Can I ask you this, Caro? Jaden Stevenson, forget the two Collingwood blokes here for the moment, but Jaden Stevenson got a 10-match ban and a $20,000 fine for having a multi. Okay, now
it was an integrity issue.
I know, and I agreed with it. Okay, this is an integrity issue, and we're going to get 2 weeks. Melcham and May Bluin in the streets get nothing from the AFL, right?
That's not an integrity issue.
But De Goey gets $10,000 fine and gets banned from being able to train all through a situation before he even got to court. Why don't we just have some rules instead of making it arbitrary and whether someone's gout's playing up on whether they get rubbed out or... The AFL, I think, have just got to have some actual hard and fast rules on this.
Is it the optics of the AFL protecting themselves in any of this?
I think so, and I think what's happened...
That's a big part of it, of course.
Well, that's right. So,
and the Players Association is a very powerful association. They're currently negotiating a CBA, and this is something the AFL is not going to go to war over.
Does a player never get 3 strikes, though? No. Because it hurts the game too much?
No, well, they can't... They've changed it around.
I think that's the nuance of the policy, which I wanted to ask Caroline. So it's said on second strike, it's a fine and a suspension.
But
you get diverted into the well-being. Yeah. So theoretically, once you're diverted into the well-being and the rehabilitation, you don't get to a second strike.
No, and players who have real issues with drugs end up retiring.
But see, I hate the fact that now every person in the AFL who says I've got a mental health issue and it's a legitimate one is now being tarred as if they're using it as an excuse for drug testing.
I respect the well-being and support the person policy. They're young men under a lot of pressure growing up in the public eye. I understand the stick piece, but I don't think it fixes the problem.
But did you want to know as a coach?
I wanted to know if we had a problem. But then I think it gets to, you know, the stars will get more support because they're important. You support them until you roll your eyes and then you get rid of them. But if someone's on the edge and, you know, you think they're a driver of a culture and that, you get rid of them. So I think it's dangerous that night. I'd like to support the person, rehabilitate.
I agree with you in all that, but I think that this acceptance now that everybody does drugs has gone too far the other way. I think the best way to not get a drug problem that leads to mental health issues and exacerbates itself 10 years later when you're out of the system, which we've seen a lot in recent times, is to not start on drugs. And sometimes players need to be able to say, I can't because I'm going to be tested tomorrow and I don't want to... The other thing is the media needs to get a little bit more mature on these things as well, to be perfectly honest.